A bank cheated and at the start of the film, we see the main character, Joe Harding, heading to the bank to learn why he received a spending notice. The bank manager tells him it means he's paying money to the government. When Joe asks why his tax refund has tripled, the manager reminds him the low-interest promotion has ended and now he has to pay 3 times more. "You did this." "What did I do?" "You sold me this junk." The old man is furious because he lives with his daughter and granddaughter and they can't afford to lose their house. On top of that, when they signed the contract, the manager claimed the chance of a rate increase was minimal, but now he's holding his ground. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. We have just issued a refund. At that moment, 3 masked robbers burst into the bank. They order everyone, except the tellers, to raise their arms and legs and pose like a cat. Following the command, the manager starts crying. One of the robbers notices him and tells him to relax. Then, Joe says his muscles cramped up, and the robber lets the old man sit down. Joe hands the robber his deposit envelope. As the robber moves him along, Joe notices a tattoo on his neck. The robber sympathizes with Joe's money problems and says, "Society needs to look after the older generation. You're just a member of the CAF. It's not much, but it's all about you." "No, my friend, not about you." When Joe says the manager doesn't care, the robber takes off his helmet. The robbers leave the bank. Later, our main character gives a statement telling the police about the tattoo on the robber's neck. He suggests finding the tattoo shop that did the design to help track down the criminals. The FBI agent responds sarcastically but thanks him. Joe's daughter Rachel and his granddaughter Brooklyn come to pick him up from the police station. Back home, Brooklyn asks her grandfather about everything he saw. She's amazed Joe witnessed a bank robbery, but Rachel doesn't share her excitement. That night, Joe watches the news and sees the same FBI agent repeating Joe's words about the tattoo, the same words he had laughed at. The report also shows a sketch of the tattoo, asking anyone who recognizes the artist to contact the authorities. The next day, Joe and his friends, Willie Davis and Albert Garner, talk about the robbery while playing pétanque. They agree the robbery was handled professionally. They also discover all 3 of them received letters from the pension department of the precinct where they once worked. Soon, they learn the precinct has been shut down, all production is being shipped to Vietnam, and the pension fund is about to run dry. That night, the 3 friends sit in a restaurant trying to decide what to do. Joe suggests hiring a lawyer. Willie objects, saying they probably won't live long enough to see a court ruling. When Joe gets home, he finds another notice from the bank. This time it's red, saying his house will be taken in a month. At his next doctor's appointment, Willie learns he urgently needs a donor. Because of his age and insurance, he's at the bottom of the transplant list, so his chances of getting a donor on his own are nearly 0. Willie promises to ask family and friends, but during a video call with his daughter and granddaughter, he never mentions his illness. Meanwhile, Albert is giving saxophone lessons to a teenager, but the boy can't play at all. The student hates the sax, and Albert tells him not to torture himself or the instrument. After leaving the student's house, Albert talks with the boy's grandmother, Annie, who flirts with him and says she saw him play with jazz legend Stan Getz in 1977. Joe picks up his granddaughter from school, even though she insists she's old enough to walk home alone. After all, she's already 14. Brooklyn shows him her biology test, which she rushed through, and reminds him he promised to buy her a dog for good grades. That night, the friends meet at a restaurant to celebrate Willie's birthday. They give him a handshake toy with a picture of his granddaughter on it, and he immediately squeezes it. Suddenly, Joe says he's been thinking about robbing banks. "I'm thinking about robbing a bank." Everyone laughs, but Joe shows them the bank statements and explains he's going to lose his house. Banks have ruined millions of lives without ever facing consequences. Joe suggests the 3 of them rob a bank, get away with the cash, and secure their retirement. Worst case, they end up in prison, which means a bed, 3 meals a day, and better health care than they have now. Joe is sure they won't be suspected because they have experience and skills. After the party, they talk by phone, and Willie is ready to go to prison. Albert refuses at first, but eventually agrees. While preparing, The friends decide to steal groceries from the supermarket where Annie works. Willie and Joe leave Albert in the car, but he follows them anyway. Annie spots him immediately, helps him grab the groceries, and flirts with him. Albert insists he's not looking for a relationship. Meanwhile, Willie and Joe's actions draw the attention of store security. They try to slip out quietly and get into the car with the groceries, but realize Albert isn't behind the wheel, meaning they can't escape right away. Joe then steals an electric scooter from a customer. In the chaos, a security guard catches fire, and Willie dives into a box of groceries. After a brief chase, during which Willie uses a bouquet of flowers as a smokescreen, they're caught. Albert is arrested too, even though he didn't steal anything. The guard was just tailing him and reacted. Everything is on camera, but the store manager forgives the clumsy shoplifters because they're so old. He even gives them discount coupons and asks them not to steal again, or at least not to leave his store. When they get outside, Albert blows up, refuses to let his friends in his car, and calls them completely unpredictable thieves. As he drives off, Willie cries and admits Albert is right. Joe decides they need professional advice. They contact Joe's ex-son-in-law and ask him to introduce them to someone who actually knows how to commit a crime. Meanwhile, Albert returns to the supermarket and runs into Annie. Again, he says he isn't looking for a relationship, but she insists there's no reason to deny themselves pleasure. They end up having dinner together and spending the night. The next day, Albert shows up at dinner with the others in a better mood, but he still refuses to take part in the robbery. Meanwhile, Willie reads the newspaper. Their pension funds are being wrecked by the same bank that plans to seize Joe's house. All three men have been customers there for years. Only now do they realize it's stealing their retirement money. They're stunned. This becomes the final push, and Albert finally understands why they're doing the robbery. They go to see Jesus, a shop owner who's also a professional criminal. They offer him 25% of the money, risk-free, because they'll do the job themselves. Jesus explains that robbing a bank could earn them life in prison if they get caught. Joe says he has nothing left to lose. His house is about to be taken and his pension wiped out. Jesus is impressed and agrees to help. That night, at a pub, the friends discuss how much cash to take. Joe calculates how much money has been stolen and says if they grab more, they'll donate the extra to charity. With Jesus' help, they build a detailed plan. They learn how to rent cameras, prep a getaway car, start exercising to look less like old men, and set up solid alibis. They even practice shooting, but Jesus warns them that killing someone during a robbery is one of the worst mistakes they can make. The friends also agree to surrender if the police show up. Finally, on the morning of the heist, Joe cooks breakfast with his son-in-law just in case Joe ends up in jail. Brooklyn is surprised. Later, Joe tells her father will pick her up from school today. Brooklyn promises to give her dad a chance to fix their relationship, and Joe gives her a big, sweet kiss. The former son-in-law tries to talk Joe out of his plan, but Joe says his problems are his own. If Joe doesn't come back from the robbery, his former son-in-law will finally have to step up and take care of his daughter. To lock in their alibi, Joe, Willie, and Albert attend a charity event. At the right moment, they slip away, change clothes, and head out in a small, beat-up car. Joe gives his friends guns loaded with blanks so nobody gets hurt. They put on masks of Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. They enter the bank, lock the doors, and fire a shot into the air. Terrified people hit the floor. As the robbers stuff bags with cash, a little girl hugs her dog, afraid they'll take it too. Willie tries to distract her, talking about his own granddaughter. Suddenly, he feels sick. Willie collapses, and as the girl tries to help him breathe, she nearly pulls off his mask. She also spots the same keychain with her grandfather's picture on it. While the robbers are distracted, a bank employee hits the alarm, and the manager grabs the guard's gun that fell on the floor. He threatens the robbers and orders them to surrender. Joe threatens him back, but the manager unloads an entire magazine and misses every shot. Joe tells him he's about to meet his maker and takes the gun himself. When the manager keeps yelling, Joe reveals the bullets were blanks. The robbers make everyone count down from 90 to 1. Then they hop on a bus and escape. By the time police arrive, the robbers have already ditched the car. They take the money bags, successfully steal $2.3 million, and split up. That night, the friends celebrate at a restaurant where Albert plays sax on stage. After drinking a lot, they go home singing, but Willie feels sick again. At the same time, the FBI launches an investigation, led by the same agent who interviewed Joe earlier. Reviewing the security footage, they conclude one robber is black and no younger than 70. Joe and Albert visit Willie at the hospital, where the doctor says he needs a transplant. Meanwhile, Willie watches the news in his room. The bank manager appears, claiming the robbers were young and athletic because they dodged all the bullets. Albert is furious Willie hid his condition, while Joe says he'll donate his own heart tomorrow if needed. At the same time, the FBI agent goes on TV, saying the robbers were likely elderly. The supermarket manager, the same one from the shoplifting mess, contacts the FBI. He compares the footage and realizes the suspects match the same height, weight, and even walking style. The FBI arrests Joe and Albert. Willie stays in the hospital because of his health. The agents question all three men about what they did the day of the robbery. They all tell the same story, how they woke up, ate, and worked at the charity event. Witness statements are taken from a head waiter, a man with dementia, and a friend of the group. Albert claims that during the robbery he was in the restroom because he had serious bowel trouble. Joe says he was selling tickets at the charity booth while Willie was working the haunted house attraction, scaring visitors. After the robbery, Albert burned the masks and fake weapons in a furnace. He then re-entered the restroom through a back wall and exited through the main door, just like before. All of it is caught on security cameras. Meanwhile, Joe takes a cab to see Jesus and hands him the money bags. Willie returns the stolen vehicle to where it belongs. Afterward, all three return to their spots at the charity event, and their presence is recorded, giving them airtight alibis. The FBI agent admits parts of the story don't line up perfectly, but insists every criminal slips up eventually, and that's when plans collapse. He takes Joe and Albert to the hospital to see Willie. There, Willie and several elderly patients are put in wheelchair diapers and crammed into a gym. Next, the little girl from the bank, the one Willie talked to who almost removed his mask, is brought in. She walks past the suspects and other elderly men, then stops in front of Willie and takes the officer's hand. When he kneels beside her, she says she doesn't see the man she spoke to during the robbery. He's not here. Are you sure? Yes, I'm positive. I have a very good memory. The agent is stunned. He asks again and she starts to cry. Joe tries to hide a smile. She repeats the man isn't there and asks if she can go home. The agent is baffled. The girl smiles at Willie. Later, Joe is sitting in a diner when Jesus walks in carrying a large fish tank with a dog inside. Jesus says the vaccinations are up to date, the paperwork is in order, and everything's fine. Joe asks if Jesus took his cut, but Jesus taps his head and says, "It's society's job to take care of the older generation." Joe remembers hearing the agent say the same thing. He asks Jesus about the tattoo on his neck, and Jesus explains it was henna, just to throw investigators off. At that moment, the FBI agent enters the diner, and Joe calmly calls him over. But the agent only returns Joe's wallet, which had been kept in evidence. Joe introduces Jesus and says he runs a birdhouse shop. They high-five, and the agent asks if Joe is keeping the dog. Joe says it's for his granddaughter. She's an honor student now. The agent asks to see the dog. He leans near the luggage carousel, looks at the tall man, and calls to the dog, not realizing money boxes are being pulled off the conveyor behind him. Joe says it's time to take the dog home before Brooklyn gets back from school. Joe, the agent, and Jesus leave the diner, and a waitress comes to the table. She complains Joe once again left her only loose change. But under the napkin with the note "Kisses" is a stack of $100 bills. The community center where the friends spend time with other retirees also receives a donation. At the hospital, Willie gets his transplant. Albert is his donor. Seeing how happy Brooklyn is with the dog, Joe reflects that in life, if you're lucky, you find good friends. Friends who stay with you to the end. You grow old together. You face trouble together. You do everything together. You laugh and cry together. That's Joe's tribute to Albert, who truly is that kind of friend. In the final scenes, the friends are at Albert and Annie's party. Everyone is wearing new holiday outfits. Willie's daughter and granddaughter are there too. And Brooklyn's father seems to have finally made peace with his daughter. Everyone drinks and celebrates. Later, the three friends stand on a bridge watching the party. Albert complains he still doesn't understand how he ended up married, but then he feels something strange, something like happiness.